is that we need more dharmic leaders. And so he has a lot of land. He's going to dedicate a 7-acre plot in one of the best areas of New Delhi, Greater Kailash, which is, where a lot of the embassies and so on are. And it will have an institute of leadership and service. And so we're going to be there helping consult, because he's turned it over. The two people most clearly involved are Kriyabans and board members of Ananda. It won't be an Ananda thing. It will be the principles that Master brought applied to uplifting leadership and essentially unlimited funding for it. So we hope that a very, very great work can come out of it.
We should say it's still very much in a tentative stage, so it's not definite. So if we're back here next year and you say, whatever happened to that institute, and we said, well, it didn't come off, that could be too. But it looks very promising, but we have to qualify that it's not for sure. Anil.
Yeah, so Jyotish talked about specific gravity and meaningful and purposeful utilization of discretionary time. And I know for sure I have lots of work to do in that area. So any suggestions how one should develop that?
I think habits are your most... Okay. Talking about specific gravity and discretionary time, and that you have a lot of work. We all have a lot of work to do in that. I think as a starting point for a beachhead is to set up habits that work. So, if you have discretionary time, then decide, for instance, that you will meditate at a certain time. Most of us, by and large, do pretty well in the morning because we've just gotten up, and it's not so hard if we avoid the toxic radio and television at the beginning of the day. We can at least get ourselves to the meditation room and do a meditation. It's more later on in the day when we're tired or our schedule has gotten rough. So if you can set up a routine of, for instance, meditating for at least a half hour before dinner, and then once it'll be very hard to get that going, because establishing that habit pattern will be tested. But once you get it established, then holding on to it becomes easier and easier. And so I would say pick 1 or 2 times that you want to change the pattern of your discretionary time. Maybe before dinner and before bedtime. So if you're going to watch television, which I wouldn't suggest in any case, but if you are, then finish at a certain time. Say, okay, I am going to end my television watching at 10 o'clock. And if you're addicted to some program, get a recorder and record this stupid thing. But stop at a certain time and then go and read some spiritual literature or meditate, but set up those habit patterns so that if you can get a kind of a beachhead going, the worst part of not being able to control discretionary time is the unawareness and the automatic flow of it. So the first step is to get aware and get some control on the edges of it. And if you do that, then you can see more clearly, oh, well, I can do this and this and this. But you have to start somewhere.
I'll just add a bit. When we're trying to change ourselves, improve ourselves, it's really, I think, very important to start from the perspective of self-appreciation and self-acceptance. So I think if you're looking to improve, don't be, oh gosh, I'm bad devotee and I'm going to start meditating an hour and a half every morning, and that's like working against your nature. If you start and you say, rather pick it up from the string, I'm a very sincere devotee. I've developed the habit of meditating for 15 minutes every morning. I'd like to do more. I'm going to try to meditate for 20 minutes every morning. So again, instead of coming at it from a punishment point of view, come at it from a reward point of view. I've done very well. I think I can try to do a little bit more. And then build on an affirmative self-image, not a guilt or self-blame. That always backfires. This year, I tried an experiment. One always makes New Year's resolutions. But what I did is just what I've said. I wrote down what I already am doing. And I said, I'm going to do this every day. And it was like, that's kind of cheating, but it was good things. I'm going to energize, and I'm going to. But it wasn't anything more than I was already doing, and then I found myself automatically adding on a little bit, because I was affirming my strengths, and so it's good advice. Don't blame yourself. Don't look at how much you're not doing. Look at what you are doing, and just try to do it a little bit more. And I don't know what it is about devotees, but I doubt that I've ever met anybody on the spiritual path, from Swamiji on down to the newest person that walks in the door, who feels that they're really doing a good job on the spiritual path. Swamiji sometimes would say to us, I don't know that I've really pleased Master in this lifetime, and with what I've done. And we would just go, oh my God. If you haven't pleased him, what hope is there for the rest of us? But it's just the common, I think people who are sensitive and sincere in nature just always feel they haven't done enough. And so try to let that go. Try to feel God is really pleased with me, and he's really proud of what I've done, he or she, or my Divine Mother. It just loves me so much. Even though I never energized, Divine Mother loves me so much. And then build on the positive.
We won't forget you.
There's a man who keeps raising his hand.
Right. Many years, the question comes up, or the advice comes up, do the best you can, make an effort. And what does it mean to do the best you can? What does it mean to make an effort? I read many, many years ago, because I've been a long-term runner for 40 years or something like that. I read a beautiful description of how you know whether you're making an effort when you're running. You're breathing hard. That's it. It isn't any, you have to run at this pace, you have to run this far, you have to do this. There's no outside standard. You're running hard if you're breathing hard. You're making an effort in running if you're breathing hard. And then the second part of that sentence was, you're making an effort if you think you're making an effort. It's really that simple. There's no outside judge saying this is an effort and that isn't an effort. And so if you think that you're making an effort in your spiritual life, then you're making an effort. And then, so take that as, wow, that's great. And then build on it a little bit at a time. But, otherwise you get these fantasized, standardized tests that nobody can pass. And you're done. Okay, your turn.
Referring back to your mentioning this gentleman who's going to start this Dharmic Institute. He's getting your folks involved. I was curious, Yogananda's other organization, SRF, do you see much activity of theirs going on in India?
Yeah,
Is
there activity with SRF going on in India? Yeah, YSS is very active. in India, and they have a lot of centers, and they're doing a good work there. It tends to appeal to a different audience than we do, and that audience, I don't want to draw too many comparisons, but for instance, generally speaking, at their meditations, there is absolutely no communication between the people that come. And so a devotee will come to a YSS meditation. They'll meditate for whatever that period of time is, and then they'll leave. And people will do that for years without ever speaking to a single other person in that. So it's the focus on the teachings and the practice of the teachings, but not the social aspect of it. And Ananda creates more of a spiritual family. But having said that, YSS appeals to a certain group of people, and they have an active work there.
In fact, a few months ago, Prime Minister Modi honored YSS for I think it was their 100th anniversary. Yeah, because 1917, Master started it. And so it was their 100th anniversary, and they had a big ceremony. And I believe they issued a stamp, didn't they? And so, they have a presence there. But as Jyotish said, what we see at Ananda, and I don't know because I don't go to the YSS centers, but we see this young, the generation of Indians, by and large, they're younger that are coming, and they're trained, they're professional, many of them educated. And what we hear often and again, I'm sure Dharmadas and Nirmala heard this too, is, the religion of my parents and my grandparents just didn't mean anything to me. It seemed very, kind of ritualistic. But the way Ananda teaches meditation and yoga and the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita, this has meaning for us. So I think I think that's another factor that, and we often, there's still a little bit of a tension there. We gave a talk in Chennai, and we often get people who are YSS come and they try to poke at us a little bit. And one man came, we gave a talk in Chennai, and they did a lot of publicity, and it was very well attended. And some man came up to me afterwards, and you can usually tell a few minutes into the conversation if they're a YSS person. He said, Master never did publicity. He never did publicity. And I never argue, but I just thought, hey, we've got posters that he put out in the 1920s. Don't tell me he didn't do publicity. So that's kind of encapsulates the difference.
We would love to have that tension dissipate, and we see it happening around the edges more on an informal rather than a formal basis. Okay.
Just coming back from concentration camps, which is the ultimate depressing situation. And many people didn't live through it, but some people did live through it. And so they made a study, why did some people live through it who were physically much different than the others, and other people died, apparently, of their depression. And the people who lived, or all people who made plans, they don't say what kind of plans, but all the people who lived made plans for themselves.
Good.
We can all do that, plan more studies, more, however, exercises we want. Anybody can do that.
Very good. So we'll just repeat because it was a good comment. People that survived the depression, is that what you said? Oh, concentration. The concentration camps. They were all people that made plans. And that's, again, that was such a keynote of watching Swamiji live his life. It never was like, okay, we've done this. It's, and look at all of our accomplishments. It was always the next community, the next book, the next project, the next theme, And so, again, it's like what we were talking about, dealing with people who are in stress, making plans, looking to the future. However difficult it is now in the world at large, we should try to just hold in our hearts, we will live through this, whether we're in the body or not still, but this will pass. The only thing, there was a beautiful photo of Ananda Ma, and with a saying of hers under it, and it said, cling to that which is eternal and lasting. And I was just thinking that in contrast, news, that's just the opposite of eternal and lasting. It's like ephemeral and momentary. But if we cling to that which is eternal and lasting, and then in that context say, I plan to do this, I plan to find God at the end of my life. And Swami threw that out to us, talking about making plans. It's a very important concept. He said, all of you should have the goal, each of Master's disciples should have the goal of becoming a Jivan Muktan, freed in this lifetime. And how do we react when we hear that? We compare ourselves. Yeah, we say, maybe her, but not me. We push it away. And I've done that for years. I've pushed it away. I thought, I'm not good enough. I'm not advanced enough. That's so self-defeating. Leave it open. Make a plan. Make it a plan. Maybe I won't fulfill that plan, but at least it's my plan. And as Jyotish said once, I said we were having a conversation. This is a little while ago, some years ago, and I said just that. I said, I don't think that I'll be able to do that in this life. And Jyotish said, you better set it as your goal and then have plan B.
And then we were in Seattle doing Sunday service, and Devi went first, and she told that. And then it was my turn, and I came up and I said, some of you may not know who I am. I'm Plan B.
Anyway, just a minute, Chad. That's just such, it sounds like such a simple thing, make a plan, make plans. Yeah. But it's based on the most profound yogic teachings. Let the upward flowing energy, let nothing impede that, no matter what comes in the way. If you're in a concentration camp, if you're deported from America, back to where you've never lived before, whatever it may be, because plans are based on hope. And that we can never let die.
And truly, you're more defined by your aspiration than you are by your current circumstances. Jayanti?
I just wanted to bring you back to that story about the little Indian boy. I don't know who else sent it to you, but I did send it to you. But what I loved was at the end of that, where he says, we should all be practicing joy.
Yeah.
The more we practice that, the better we'll be.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, the key statement was, you become good at whatever you practice. And so, do you practice worrying? Do you practice anxiety? Do you practice? And then, if you become good at what you practice, then I suggest we should practice joy. So, okay, last question.
We'll do somebody who hasn't asked that. Is that okay? Okay, there's one man who hasn't asked that.
This is, just a comment, when talks in relation to making plans, I think of this concept I've heard in karate, when they're talking about, the master's talking about how you're going to take your hand and you're going to hit the board, and you're going to break the board. And you make a plan, basically you're making a plan that your hand is going to go through the board. And you focus on the point beyond the board. And that greatly increases the strength of your hand going into the board.
Very good.
And its relationship to the thing of, say you're a person and you have an idea to make a very ambitious plan. And you make the plan and you walk out in the street to carry it out and you're hit by a car and mortally wounded and you're dying. I'm so glad I made that plan. I'm so glad I at least went as far as to make the plan instead of asking myself, walking down the street, getting hit by the car while I was asking myself, well, should I do it or shouldn't I?
Yeah. I will just repeat that for the recording because I wish you all could come up and add your comments, but in martial arts, they teach you when you're making using the hand and arm to break a board, to visualize the hand already on the other side of the board, and that's so you're making a plan. And he said, even if you make a plan for something in your life and then you go out and are mortally wounded, but then you can die with the thought, I'm glad I made that plan. And that reminded me of something that Master said. He said, even if you've been an atheist all your life, at the moment of death, if you think of God, that will carry you forward towards higher consciousness. So it's the moments of directing the energy towards a higher consciousness, and that's why Swami called death the final exam, because what we're doing in all of our everything we've talked about, it's to see ourselves on the other side of Maya, and that's the plan we're making.
Some years ago, we were having dinner with a couple, and the mother had made a big plate of cookies for us. And their son, who was about 6 at the time, was eating them. And so he picked one up, and the mother said, "No, Rama, now that's the last cookie." And he grabbed another one and said, "No, this is the last cookie, Mama." And so in that tradition, that seemed to be the last question, but this is actually the last question. You didn't know where I was going with that one, did you?
I have a question regarding meditation. We oftentimes hear go to meditation deeply, and I can appreciate that suggestion. How do you do it?
Okay, what does it mean to be deep in meditation?
How do you go deep?
How do you go deep? You concentrate more single-pointedly, so that's one aspect of it. You relax more deeply, that's another aspect of it. And you open yourself so that the energy, for instance, if after Kriya we suggest that you try to look at the light, at the spiritual eye. So you try to look only at that light. That's the concentration part. You try to relax into that light because the tension will break that. And then finally you try to open yourself to the influence of that light so that you feel that light is filling your being. And if you can combine those three, you will find that your consciousness deepens. Whereas if you break any of those three, if you can't meditate, if you can't concentrate, if you think of other things, you won't go deep. If you can't open yourself to the influence of that, you won't go as deeply as you can. And if you can't relax, so those three, concentration, relaxation, and receptivity.
Now, this is the last cookie, Daddy.
Uh-oh.
I was looking for you because I didn't see you here, and then I just saw you. When we were coming in, she said, I listened to your classes from last year, year before Inner Renewal Week, and you gave a wonderful class on the Bhagavad Gita, and I didn't understand any of it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give you a 3-minute explanation of what we said. So, because it's not that complicated. So, Master's interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita is that it's about two opposing armies, but just as we've been saying, those two armies are part of our own consciousness. The Pandavas, the good parts of ourselves, the soul qualities, and the Kauravas, the materialistic aspects of ourselves, and they're always within ourselves that are in conflict, and there's always a war going on. And the battlefield of Kurukshetra, that also means the body, Kurukshetra. So each one of us is a house divided. But the secret is that Krishna, who is symbolic of God in that great epic, he is the charioteer of the main warrior for the good. So what does that mean? That God cannot fight our battles, but he will drive our chariot and he will guide us towards victory. That's where devotion and discipleship comes in. So life is a battle. The forces that want us to be materialistic and greedy and selfish and all of those things, and the forces that want us to transcend the ego. That battle is always going on. But remember that the forces of good have the battle is weighted in their favor because God is driving and guiding and empowering the forces of good. So that's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita.
And don't despair if you feel that you don't understand it, because when Babaji asked Lahiri Mahashaya, Sri Yukteswar, if he knew the Gita, Sri Yukteswar said, I can't claim to really know it, even though my eyes have gone through it many times. Many years ago, Devi and I gave a week-long course on Patanjali, and at the closing circle, there was a man who had a good sense of humor. Anyway, his comment...
We were going around saying,
yeah,
what did you get from
what
the
did you
course?
get from the course,
The key
and so on.
takeaways.
Yeah, and he had a good sense of humor. He said, I'm still confused, but at a much higher level.
Why don't we take about a 5-minute break, or I know the lines at the bathroom, however long it's